Welcome back to Stories from the River. I'm your guest host, Hope Stalker. Back on March 26th, the finance team held its second annual Knights Summit. Knights from near and far came together to spend a day connecting with one another. We had the opportunity to hear from several guest speakers this year: Sarah Watson from Forvis Mazars, our independent audit firm, and our own CEO, Charlie Malouf. After Charlie's presentation, he agreed to sit down for some Q&A with questions coming from our own memory makers. Let's listen as we chat about Broad River's growth, pioneering a Northwest expansion, the award-winning Broad River culture, and what he sees as some of our biggest opportunities and challenges heading into 2025.
Welcome to Stories from the River, a show in which we go behind the scenes at Broad River Retail.
So I've been on the podcast several times, but I've only been on the interviewer side once. And it was ladies that I knew. It was for the Women's History Month last year. We did Women in Leadership. But this is a dream come true for me. How often do we get to put Charlie in the hot seat? And, you know, known Charlie for 19 years now, just celebrated 19 years. And just to see the growth and the change in him, not just in this company, but in him as a leader and everything that he's done for us has just been amazing to watch. I mean, it really has been. I see Lynn shaking her head and Tira shaking her head. I remember the first meeting with Charlie in Matthews in a dining set with Sally. And we talked about how we could kind of get together on refunds and things like that. Shop Ashley was in its infancy.
That was fun. ShopAshley.net. Yeah,
what a time to be alive for this company, because we had our own website. That was trouble tickets, refund requests, finance paperwork. I don't know if Lim remembers all that. Yeah. And those were Charlie's brainchilds. So how far we've come. So we wanted to call this Stories from the River Unplugged. Because we're not over at the, let me get in this chair. Can you not film while I get in this chair? Thank you very much. Thank you. My aging eyes, I have to put these glasses on.
I saw a tiny font. I can't do it. I can't see
it. It is tiny, isn't it?
I look at like bottles and I was like, someone please read this thing.
Once you reach a certain age, past 45, your arm gets too short and you can't hold it out any further, so you have to go get the glasses. So thanks for being here with us today. We are so excited to hear from you and these questions that came from our own memory makers and our group here. But we're going to get right into it. And this question came from April. Actually, it was submitted by a couple of you. April was just the first one, so her name gets on the question. It's about 2025. We've already talked about what our outline is and our plan is for 2025. But what are the biggest challenges to company success right now? You see, like 23andMe just recently announced bankruptcy and no sustainable business model, and they had a cyber attack. So what do you see Broad River's biggest challenges for 2025 being?
Yeah, first of all, can I say, it's an honor to be with you, Hope. You've meant so much to our company.
Thank
and
you
were like the secret sauce behind the scenes a lot of times to help us go and solve big problems. And you do a great job as a guest host. We're going to have you a lot more often guest hosting, so get used to that seat.
Awesome.
And thank you guys for the questions. The biggest challenges for 2025. That's a great question. The number one focus area was driving revenue to 272. And I think our biggest opportunity right now is retail leadership. And by the way, that's probably been a big opportunity for a lot of years. We think that the general manager who runs the store can be such an influential part of success for that store. And right now, it's as we've grown and added stores, we haven't always been able to maintain the quality as well as the quantity. And so I don't think we've got 33 high-performing, and they're all at different aspects of their careers too, because we're constantly trying to shuffle and change, and the only constant is change at retail. So but right now we're trying to solve the gap of retail leadership primarily at the general manager level. That's probably the biggest one, and because you can look at from store to store, and the team doesn't change, the store doesn't change, the customers don't change, and you're like, wait a second, why do their results go from here to here? and it's the leader. And so leaders can influence change, and so we got to have 33 going on to 34 A+ leaders in our stores. So that's our comp plan has really worked well when revenues are going up, because we got a lot of variable bonus pay, and when they don't. When we don't hit our retail bonuses, it really, our retail bonus structure and programs fall a little bit flat. Not at the HFC level, but really at the GM level, and that puts some financial strain and pressure on that position. And so we've got to really kind of, without really throwing our model out, don't want to throw the baby out with bathwater, but we've got to kind of try to figure out how to retweak, reinvent our model. And by the way, keep all of our KPIs strong, our sales per guest, our margin, our secret sauce. But to do that in a way that recruits and retains top tier talent in our industry, because it's only getting more competitive. We got new competitors coming into our markets, and so we got to recruit and retain top tier talent. A little bit long. Well, I'll try to get shorter answers.
It's quite all right. And GMs have to be the culture carriers.
That's
they
right.
have to come from here. They have to get baptized, so to speak, and then take that back to Fayetteville or Wilmington, and we'll talk a little bit more about outer markets
100%.
in just a minute. So what are some pioneering milestones or breakthroughs Broad River hopes to accomplish in 2025?
Well, I think getting the Spokane market, we call that Project Cascade. There's the Cascade Mountains, and we're trying to cascade our culture. And it's something, adding a new store in the Broad River current existing regions, it's like putting another spoke on the wheel. But here we're going to go add a whole other wheel that's got no spokes on it right now. And so that presents a whole new pioneering challenge. And by the way, it's not going to operate the way that we do here. What I mean by that is, where we've got backstock and inventory and turns. You got one store, you're probably going to have a smaller distribution center and less inventory in stock, presents new challenges for how to do business. And so we're going to have to kind of think like a single store operator for a little bit until we kind of build up that density from the ground floor up. So that's a big one.
It is a big one.
Yeah.
It's a really big one. So speaking of Cascade, we're going to move into a set of questions about Project Cascade. And this comes from Therese. She said she remembers when Augusta and Fayetteville felt so remote. We were here in the Charlotte area, and they were way outliers for us, like satellites almost. Both locations overcame struggles to align with company processes and culture. How can we start now to help support Spokane?
Well, I love the question about trying to support a new store. Will Luke is running that project for us, Project Cascade, and he's already started running it on a project management platform and trying to think through cross-departmentally all the different things that we need to kind of think through. And the good thing is we have a long runway. That store, we've got a long runway for build out. So we've probably got the longest runway for a new store that we've ever had in terms of preparation. So I think that affords us the luxury of time and to think through some things without like intense pressure. One of the things we really want to do is try to bring some of the people who we might hire to come do a stint in our markets or one of our markets or stores for a period of time. The other thing that we want to do is see who raises their hand to say, hey, I'll go out and I'll help you sell or lead or work in the distribution center for a period of time. And so we've had a lot of people who have raised their hands. I mean, I got a text message the other day from an HFC in Cary who said, hey, I'm serious, I'll go to Spokane. I'm like, okay, this is randomly, it's like, I don't know what's going on, but sure. I mean, it's just unprompted out of the blue. So I think because we're at a certain scale with our company size, we can afford to get people, bring them in, get them trained up or learn the system, learn the culture, or see who kind of wants to go on a little bit of an adventure for a period of time. It doesn't have to be forever, just to kind of help us stand it up the right way.
Nice.
So I think if we have people come in or people are going to deploy, I think being willing to work with them on like retail operations and REMs and or CX solutions and problems, and also just asking Will Luke, hey, can I take a look? Can I take a look at the project plan and see if there's opportunities for me or our team to assist?
Right. And if anybody can do it, Will Luke can do it. I mean, the man is a legend. I miss him on the retail ops team, but I wish him all the best. And we kind of talked about how we can help those new memory makers adopt to that way of life and that culture. Do you think that means taking a GM from here who is well-versed in everything and putting them out there?
Maybe. There's also, it's interesting, when you announce things like this, people come out of the woodworks and reach out to you. So there's a lot of people who live out west with Ashley experience who are constantly like, I don't have 50 GM positions. I do over here, but not over there. So, but there's actually, it's interesting. We've got some good family friends. Our boys go to school with their kids and are good friends with them. And it's interesting, like I'm at a cross-country meet a few months ago, and his sister's in town, and she lives in Spokane, and she had been a district manager in our industry for like 9 years, and she's looking for her next career. So she actually has a place that she could live over here. So maybe we hire someone there and say, hey, come live here for 6 months and learn. Make sure you learn it the Broad River way, so that when you can go back there. So there's things like that. Whether we take someone from here, which we might. I don't know if someone from here is going to want to go move there permanently. They might, but I think it's maybe a little bit of both. Hiring someone early out there and being willing to come do a few months here, or having someone here and deploying them for several months out there.
Either way, we're going to dunk them in the river before we send them out there.
I like that. She's got all the quotes. Dunk them in the river.
So how, we kind of talked about how we could start planning now to kind of, think about ways. Do you have any suggestions for us as the finance team to start, as we think ahead to the rest of 2025, we're closing up projects now. How can we start kind of wrapping our arms around what that's going to look like for us?
Yeah, I think you can join some of those meetings, the Project Cascade meetings, and try to think like a smaller retailer. Like if we were not the size that we were, what would be the challenges that we would have, and how our customer shipment's going to be a little bit more longer than we have here because we don't have as much inventory. So what kind of opportunities does that present? Is the financing going to be the same because it's a different clientele?
Right.
So I think it's hard for me to anticipate what some of those are, other than to say, hey, it's an open kimono, get involved in the project management team.
Love that term.
Yeah, and see how we can kind of help. I mean, I'm sure there's questions we can't contemplate or think of, but we will. And by the way, we don't want to stay small there forever. We won't. You heard me say in the presentation that we need it to be a 3-store market, and then we want to kind of add other adjacent markets out there. But if we were a small market with a small distribution center to start, what does that look like? And are our processes the same? And then I would get with Bill and I'd look at, well, what's budgeted? What do you have in the pro forma, and what can I do within what's budgeted to make it work? And is it the right budget? And the sooner that we can adjust the pro forma, like, oh, Bill, you only have this planned, but I think we need to, for the first 6 months, it needs to be a little bit more. Let's go ahead and kind of bake that in so we don't have any kind of financial or spend surprises.
Of course.
So I would kind of think through kind of how we're going to operate and make sure that we have that informed in our pro formas as much as we can.
Okay, great. So Broad River is culture to me. I didn't know what that term was till probably, 2018 was that the year of purpose. And I really feel like that's when it started to bloom inside of me, what culture meant. My husband works for a company that is owned by Germany. They're very hands-off. They have no culture. And this is just such an amazing place to come every single day. So we're going to talk a little bit about culture. Okay. This question comes from Nee. Nee asks, what does being a pioneer mean to you as a leader, and how do you inspire the entire Broad River team to embody that mindset?
Well, it means, Nee has some great questions. I saw some of the questions on there. I'll try to keep it as concise as I can. When I first heard the word pioneer, I tried not intentionally to come up with a word this year. I didn't want to have any preconceived notions or any biases about they didn't choose something I was thinking of. So when I first heard it, it emboldened me. I went for a walk after work that evening, and I just it emboldened my spirit. And I think what for me, and my experience is going to be different from others, is it really emboldened me to challenge myself to go do that thing that I'm holding back on, to go be a little bit more courageous and not fearful. And so, whether that means putting myself out there or taking the first step on something, or not being afraid to not being complacent, to me, that's how I internalize it.
Very nice. And from Nee again, Nee had all the good questions here. How does Broad River encourage a culture of pioneering innovation among memory makers? Are there specific programs that foster new ideas and creative problem solving?
Yeah, well, one of our core values is innovation. And so I think we've always got to find new ways to do things. I just listened to there's a guy named Alex Hutchinson who wrote the book Endure. And then they wanted him to write Endure 2. He was a long distance runner. But I just listened to a podcast. 7 years later, he just came out with his second book, and it's called The Explorer's Gene. And I was thinking about it, there's something about doing something new and fresh that kind of lights us up, where it's not always the same mundane thing. And habits are great, but we also need to make sure that we have habits that support, health, wellness, et cetera, but also being willing to kind of mix it up, try new things, and kind of juxtapose that. And so I think from memory makers, not being afraid to ask questions. Just because we've always done it that way, should we always do it that way? I mean, you look at CX, they just replaced one solution with a different solution. They put in Freshworks, and so they're finding new ways. I think in the age of AI, it affords a tremendous amount of opportunities to say, how can we either create more efficiencies using AI, not being fearful of AI, or how can we use that to drive revenues? We're in a beta test right now with a company called Panorama.ai that's going to help us get more efficient, in theory, on our media and marketing spend by giving them our sales data, and they're in beta. So it's being willing to look for those things, think about those things, ask the question what if, how could this be better? I think that's how we can encourage a pioneering spirit in support of kind of our company's goals.
Nice. Well, that kind of answers our next question about how does Broad River pioneer new ways to connect with customers, both in-store and online. We've seen a lot of big box retailers go completely out. You mentioned Badcock. You mentioned, Cons and Big Lots going out. How can we engage now to make sure that we carry ourselves through that?
Well, we're trying new things. We're pioneering new things in marketing. If you look at our last 3 ribbon cuttings or grand opening events, we had lines out the door. And it all came from a little bit of an idea of using social media and doing a take a chance wall. And so customers were lining up before the opening to come in for the take a chance wall, for the chance to win a $2,500 or $5,000 shopping spree, or 20 other kind of gifts or things like that. And so that was a pioneering way that we use social media. I was listening to Lexi Passwater on a podcast she did with Drew Maddox when they were with DSG, and it's about how she's using AI in marketing to test new things. So I think whether we're using social media, if you look at how we're innovating off of our podcast, and we're taking it from the long form episodes to these reels, because everyone likes reels and short form videos. And so many people aren't going to watch the whole thing, but they'll I saw your little clip, and it's Tyler just kind of came up with an idea, started putting these clips natively on there, and that's what people are kind of paying attention to. So I think figuring out what customers are paying attention to and how we can kind of continue to prospect to drive traffic are some ideas that we can be pioneering in that way.
Broad River going to TikTok?
Well, look, we should experiment with it, and we should experiment with Instagram Reels, and anywhere our customers are engaging with content, we should see if there's a way that we can do it affordably, cost effectively, and be willing to test and iterate and learn.
Nice. Broad River comes to TikTok. You heard it here first. So from Nee again, can you share an example where Broad River took a bold pioneering risk that paid off?
Yeah, I sure can. Well, since Steve's here, this one's easy. I can list a few, but in 2015, when we were at our worst, we we took a bold step in Dash. And so we decided to basically, there's a whole long part of that, but when we were at our lowest moment, we decided to give everyone at retail a raise. How do we do that? We started paying commission on a category we never paid commission on before, which was home delivery. And that was all part of a greater plan to grow our delivery revenues, not linearly, not by step, but exponentially. So we changed our delivery pricing. We fired our delivery partner of 11 years. We brought on a new delivery partner, and we rebranded it. And so because we said Mrs. Jones doesn't want the lowest common denominator in her home, so we always went with like the lowest cost provider. We said, no, we need to be willing to pay more, which was a sea change that we had never kind of comprehended that, because we started to understand that home delivery, just like our commissioned associates, we want the best commissioned associates, the best sales force, and how you compensate them matters. And we thought, well, hey, if we squeeze our delivery provider, we're doing a great job, we're getting a low rate. But what we came to find out was, well, no, they're actually still making their margin. They're just paying less to their motor carriers. Well, that doesn't work. So we had to go be willing to trust a provider who's going to pay more, get better talent, because we said, well, that's actually a variable rate and that's a tough job to do. So we need a better experience in the home, but we got to be able to afford it. And so we got to charge more, but we have to have some branding behind, like convincing our customers that this isn't like just, because we're not just dropping a door. This was also when everyone was saying free delivery and Amazon Prime, and we're not dropping a box at the doorstep. And so we said, no, we're actually going to change it to Dash, delivery, assembly, service in our home. And I had to stand in the gap for several years on that. What I mean by that is there was so much pressure for several years from powers that be above me, who wanted us to say, no, the only way you can compete is with free delivery. That's what customers expect. And I knew that that was such an important lever to our profitability. And I just refused to do it, and probably pissed off and annoyed a lot of people who thought that they were right. And by the way, some of those people are now doing exactly it the Broad River way. And I'm not saying that from an ego perspective, but like when you think you're right and you know you're right, and you take a contrarian view that you ultimately get proved to be right, that can be the biggest payoff. So that was a bold pioneering thing that we did, that we had to kind of defend it for 5 or 6, 7 years until the rest of the licensing network or industry kind of caught up to us on it. Yeah, that'd be one. I got a few others, but you got other questions you got to ask.
And Steve Carey is Mr. Dash himself.
That's why I said, yeah, he came up with the name Dash in case I buzzed past it. That's why I said I wanted to say it since Steve was here. Because Steve was in the meeting during our Change the News meetings that we ran from April 1st, 2015 to the end of June 2015. And we were presenting this concept, and we were like, well, does anyone kind of have a thought what we're going to, maybe how we brand it? He goes, what? Well, I thought of something, and Ashley Dash. And he kind of unpacked it. I was like, well, that's great. Let's go with that. So that's exactly how I remember that story going. Is that, am I on?
That's it.
That's it? Yeah.
Broken window.
Yeah, the broken window news. I mean, I think if I may, just give, like, I think that in 2017, when we launched our own home delivery company, Riverstone Logistics, that was a bold pioneering step. I think in 2018, when management did management buyout and took over company ownership, which required like all of our cash and a lot of debt, which I'm happy to talk about now because we've maintained a fortress balance sheet. Some could look at that as a bold pioneering step or a risky step. I would look at maybe the vision we set to one day have a distribution center out east, which we cast that vision in August 2017 in a meeting in this room, and then by October 2018 saying, hey, we want to go do that, and by May of 2019 finding the land and endeavoring to build a massive, at that time I think it's $15 million facility, store plus distribution center plus call center in 4 Oaks, North Carolina. I think that was a bold pioneering step. So there's be a few others that kind of have paid off well. Not all of our steps have paid off well, but you kind of try not to pay tuition twice and live and learn. But those would be a few I'd point to that have worked out in our favor for the home team.
They sure have. They really, really have. So from Jeff and April, they want to know, what do you see the biggest opportunity for our company in the next 3 to 5 to 10 years?
Yeah, 3 to 5 years, I think it's really doing more of what we're doing now. I think it's getting the Northwest stood up successfully, while maintaining at a premier level all of the Broad River stores here and continuing to grow these stores. I mean, I'm working on a potential new site in one of our markets right now. And so I think we've got to continue to grow organically here and elevating our SPG and like that thing we talked about, the 272 million target for 2025. We got to start hitting these numbers, getting back on the double-digit growth trajectory in a sustainable, responsible manner. And we have to have top-tier talent across the board. And we've got to be able to afford that talent, so we've got to operate profitably. I think that you'll also see us do more reinvesting back into our people. So there's some exciting things we're learning from like Movement Mortgage on their LoveWorks program. So I think you'll see us come up with, we've got the Founder Scholarship Fund. I think what we don't have is a crisis assistance fund. And so we have a heart for that. So I think you'll see us develop a crisis assistance fund. I mean, you've seen us do like various pioneer profit sharing programs and things of that nature. And then for leadership team, matches and things of that nature. So I think, but we need a crisis assistance fund. I think we may also look in putting together a mentoring program, and then start to do some vision trips or mission trips with our people. So some of the things on like reinvesting back into our people, and then reinvesting back into our communities and our neighbors. So furnishing life's best memories for others. But I think growing the Northwest and standing that up the right way. At some point in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll probably start with a sublease on a distribution center there, but then we'll probably have to endeavor to do like a Spartan Ridge or a Four Oaks or build a distribution center. And that's going to service the hopefully a density of sales and revenues out there. And what we want that to be is to do that market the right way, because there's been some failed licensees out there. So we need to do it the right Ashley way. And then what that opens up to us, I think, can be exponential. Because if we prove to ourselves that we can do that and do it well, then I think there's Central Washington, I think there's Western Montana, I think there's Southern Idaho, I think there's then also other non-adjacent markets that kind of present themselves to us where we start to think more exponentially on how we can kind of go after growth. So I think we need to do that really well while maintaining the whirlwind and getting better along the way with quality. And I think that opens us up to going after like what's the 2035 vision or the 2040 vision.
Very nice.
Thanks for listening to Stories from the River. To check out more episodes, visit storiesfromtheriver.com. To watch this episode, go to youtube.com/@storiesfromtheriver. Join us again next week, and remember to like, rate, and subscribe to the podcast.